Okay, hi. It's just turned 6 o'clock on Monday, the 23rd of February, 2026. And today's subject is basically the authenticity of the Bible. However, there's no one here, so I'm going to talk about something else. What am I going to talk about? We just had a new member join a moment ago. Does that inspire me to anything? Maybe not. Inspire. How about the word itself? Yeah, you do know where the word inspire comes from. It's derived from in spirit, to put something into your spirit. And we are inspired by God. God talks to us by putting things into our spirit. Now, I'm not going to find scriptures to say that. What I'm going to say is the definition of the word charis means that. As Strong defines the word charis, translated into grace, as the divine influence upon the heart and its reflection in the life. And Thayer earlier described that word as, well, he gave a few different descriptions for it in different meanings and contexts, but the main meaning and main context was the merciful kindness by which God, exerting his holy influence upon souls, turns them to Christ, keeps, strengthens, increases them in Christian faith, knowledge, affection, and kindles them to the exercise of the Christian virtues. How often have I said that? I seem to be saying at most meetings now. And what gets me about this is I feel like I should have just explained it once and moved on. But what I know is that when a person joins this group, they're going to look at the last message I gave and assess the group based on the last message I gave. And the group shouldn't even be assessed on the messages I give. I'm not, it's not a church. I am not a church. I am not the pastor of the group. I am not here to deliver messages. I'm here to encourage each and every one of you to get involved in whatever way you can and to grow closer to God, to discover your call, to train in that call, to launch that call, and to get a community of believers around you. Now, that community might be online at this stage, but when it grows large enough, I'll just use Perth as an example. We have about 6 or 7 members in the northern Perth area. They're all within a coffee shop distance of each other. They could all meet at a central coffee shop sometime and say, "Oh, let's get together and talk about the group and talk about God and start blessing each other and blessing God just by our meeting as a community or whatever." It's just an idea. I foresee a day where the members of this group will actually meet physically as well. And they will help each other to grow and reach what God has called them to. So, am I here to deliver messages like this? No, not at all. Do I focus on charis a lot? Yes, I do, because it's really important. Now, if I go back and look at all the messages that I've given on charis, there is a distinct increase of knowledge with each one. I had a basic understanding of it when I first started talking about it. I increased that understanding about it somewhat the next time I spoke about it, and so on. Each time I speak about it, I'm usually speaking under some new knowledge. that I have about this one little word. So if a new person was to go back and look at those early messages, they'd understand a lot more than just by looking at one message. And here's my issue. If I talk about charis or doulos right now, I've just used the word doulos. Do you know what I'm talking about? Anyone that's watched the last 5, 6 messages would know what doulos is. They might not have a great understanding as if they watched the messages 10, 20 messages ago when I explained doulos in even more depth. But are you, as a person watching this, new to the group and you're just watching the last message rather than starting at the very beginning, watching the early messages I first gave? The first things I talked about was the nature of God and salvation itself. And then I talked about some basics of things like baptism and some basic aspects of Christianity, etc., and the foundation of your self as a Christian. And I've been developing on from the basics to the more advanced stages. So if you've been a Christian for quite a while and this is the first message you're watching, well, of course, you can consider those first few messages as really basic anyway. So maybe not necessarily something that you want to watch. Uh, they're all watchable, they're all good, but the first ones are focusing on unsaved people and newly saved people. So I understand if you happen to have been committed to God for quite a while and you're looking for meaty subjects that you want to jump in at the ones that I'm doing now. And yes, I do consider them somewhat meaty. How many people talk about grace under its full, correct understanding? Many people talk about grace, the unmerited favor of God. And knowing all about the unmerited favor of God is all you need to know about grace because it's the unmerited favor of God. They don't even know, if that's all they can talk about, that that is just a small aspect of it. Let's look at Thayer again. In fact, Strong's Concordance doesn't even mention unmerited favor. He says graciousness, especially, and graciousness can't explain grace because you're using the same word to explain itself. It's like saying, well, I'll explain an automobile as a car or a car as an automobile. They're just two different words for the same thing. But then he goes on to say, especially the divine influence upon the heart and its evidence in the life, what its reflection in the life. So his explanation of grace, the primary aspect, where he says especially, so this is the primary aspect of grace, is the divine influence on the heart, how God changes your heart and God makes you a new person. That's a lot more than unmerited favor. My unmerited favor as a judge might allow someone out of prison. Well, let's look at the president of the USA, for example. Doesn't matter who is president of the USA, they have the power to take anyone out of jail. Anyone they want, they have the power to forgive any particular sentence. And they always do. They always forgive certain sentences. And that's unmerited favor. The person in prison might not have done anything to deserve what that president has decided they'd let them off for. But does that change that ex-prisoner's life? Nope, they just go off and live their life however they want to live their life. So that's unmerited favour. But far beyond that, Strong said, especially the divine influence upon the heart and its reflection in the life. So, how God changes your heart, it's far more than unmerited favour. It's a life change through the heart and its reflection in the life. In other words, that can be seen, not your life shows what's happened in your heart. So it's a reflection. It's not your life is what's happened in your heart. It's showing what's happened in your heart. So a reflection in your life. In other words, God changing your heart so much that it can be seen by other people in your life and your lifestyle. They just look at you and go, you're obviously a Christian or something along that line. Because if they can consider you a Christian before even asking if you are, then that's the kind of thing that Strong is talking about in that regard. They And why am I even on this? I've explained this many times. And Thea says, the merciful kindness, well, those two words are unmerited favour anyway, by which God, exerting, that's a force, so he's making something happen, exerting his holy influence upon souls, again, the heart, the spirit, the soul, turns them to Christ. So God is the one that changes a person from being a sinner to being godly. God will have that person focus on himself, on Jesus, so much that that person will just automatically stop sinning because they're too busy focusing on God. They haven't had the time to sin, or they haven't thought about sin, or if something happens, do they think about lying? It's like, no, I've got God in my life so much. All I want to do is just tell it like it is, tell the truth, etc. It is becoming their nature, and God is making that move happen in their life. They don't have to do anything. So maybe this is how I'm going to take this one. They don't have to make that change. God's making that change. Let's focus on that change. A person who is trying their hardest to not sin is trying whose hardest? Their hardest. An effort that they are making under their strength because it's their effort. And when you do something under your strength as your effort, being you the one that's doing it, then you're putting yourself above God because you're using your power, your strength, yourself to no longer sin, to be a good person. Well, that's not Christianity. Christianity is saying, God, I can't do it under my strength. You're going to have to take over and you're going to have to turn me to Christ so much that sin's just gone in my life. And God does that. Somebody that is really let God work on their heart 100%, not just, oh, well, God can sort of have some of my heart and I'll get away from sin under my strength and everything. Well, the me is still there. It's all about the me. Who's important, you or God? One choice. Who's in your heart, you or God? One choice. You might find it impossible to get yourself out of your heart entirely. Push me hard enough, and I'll find a little bit of myself still in my heart. I might get a little bit upset, or I might get um, angry or disturbed in some way, because even though I want God to have 100% of my heart and God to be 100% in control of my life, it's a very, very, very hard thing to do, to get the self, the ego, the pride, the desires of yourself out of your life. However, the effort is not to stop sinning. The effort is to submit to God. That's what God asks. God asks we submit to Him. And if we submit to Him, by nature, we'll stop sinning. It's like saying, if I am a Amish person and the most technological thing I've got is my horse and cart, because technology is a bad thing, and I suddenly choose to submit to technology and trade in my horse and cart for a car, then I am allowing that submission to now move me from the Amish community to wherever I'm going at 100 miles an hour rather than 5 miles an hour on a horse and cart. Not that you would travel at 100 miles an hour, but um, the car is the ability. And God gives you the car um, to step away from sin and step towards godliness. God makes it happen. The transport is no problem to get from there to there if you have submitted to God and given up on your stance of being Amish, or as an example, or being the person in control, the person to be able to stop the sin in your life, and the person to be able to make yourself more godly by making yourself pray more, read the Bible more, go to church more, whatever it is. Sure, read the Bible more. Sure, pray more. Sure, go to church more. But are you doing those things out of your strength to make you better? Or are you doing those things because you've just said, I can't do anything, God, it's all up to you. You just come into my heart and take over. I have I am nothing in my strength. I am worthless in my strength. So I'm not trying to try and do anything via my strength. And when you do that, it's not a matter of saying, well, I gave up my strength so God could take over, and that means I'm going to go out and get drunk all the time because I'm waiting for God to take over and make me no longer a drunk. No, it doesn't work that way either. You've still got to consider God and desire to have God in your heart, because if you still want to use that as an excuse to go out and get drunk, well, then your excuse only shows that your desire, your wants, your needs in your life, you are still more important. When God's more important than all that, why would you want to drink? You don't, because that doesn't glorify God. And all you want to do is glorify God because you've got God in your life. Okay. I think I should be getting off this subject because, in one way or another, I've been talking about it an awful lot lately. But there must be people out there that haven't really heard this in this particular format before. So I think I've dealt with that for the last time. I should be looking for new subjects now. Warfare in the spirit. Let's look at that. We need to submit to God as well to win the spiritual battle, because it's not just a matter of getting yourself out of your heart and getting God into your heart. There's a spiritual battle in your life to control whether that happens or not as well. And that's God and the angels against the forces of darkness, Satan and the demons, etc. Sure, they're fighting over each other. But there was a saying that I don't know where it came from. There's two big dogs inside me, uh, faith and fear. The one I feed the most is the one that wins. I don't know who said that or anything, but there are two big dogs inside you, God and the devil. The one that you feed the most is the one that will win. Do you give your time to God and godly things, or do you give your time to getting your own desires met? Oh, I want to do that drinking. I want to uh, act in my own self-interest. I want to not be distracted by these things happening on my computer at the moment and these people sending me messages and it's going bing, bing, bing that you can probably hear. But that spiritual warfare is affected by you making choices by prayer, yes. So pray that you are directed in the right way by God, etc. And I'll stick with prayer for a second. One of the things I've done is taken the Lord's Prayer and personalized it. I looked at the aspects of what Jesus was saying, pray this and pray this and pray this. And I basically thought, well, I'm going to create a regular prayer for myself, which much of it will have a Lord's Prayer basis, but I'm going to pray extra things into my life. So when it comes to your prayer life, definitely have a prayer life. And a regular prayer life or a regular prayer format is not a bad thing. Praying for each and every issue could be okay, but I tend to pray just as generalization myself. I pray for certain things, not, oh, I want a brand new car or anything like that. I'm not praying for physical things. I'm praying for aspects of life or the like. And that God would move me in the direction that He wants to move me in, and so on. But there is no but there. I'm just still distracted and don't know where to head to with this any further. So I hope that I've said something that has made something click and work in your life. I pray that you now want more from God. You want to learn more. You want to spend more time with God. You want God on your mind more through every minute of the day. And that you're going to seek out ways to learn how to do that. I've said other messages about how to do those things, and I guess I should say them again because again, here's the issue. People join a group and they look at the most recent message. And if they liked that, they might look at the second most recent message. So they're looking at the most advanced piece of material. And then they're going back to a previous piece of material that is leading on to that advanced piece. And if they keep going back, they end up with oh, well, finally I've learnt about the messages that are the basics of Christianity at the very end. Please go and look at the first messages and start there and follow them through. If these messages are good, post them. Get them out there to everyone. Rate the messages out of 10. I've been saying that lately. And whatever your calling is, if you don't know what it is, contact us. We'll help you find out. We've got a calling quiz that you could do, for example. And if you haven't trained in that, we can help you train. If you haven't launched that calling, we can help you launch. We can get a community of like-minded believers around you to support you. All you need to do is contact us and tell us where you're at, and we'll work with you from wherever you're at now. So it's all up to you. Growth in your life is up to you. Growth of this group is up to you. Growth of the body of Christ in evangelism is up to you. It's up to me as well. But I might be able to have 3 or 4 people this year commit to God and say sinners' prayers. With somebody else, it might be 10. With 100 other people, it might be 400 or 500 people that come to God this year. If everybody in this group did this now, there might be 1,000 people turn to God this year. We all need to start acting, and we all need to start acting on God's behalf now. And the first thing is get your life right by making sure you're giving your life to God, and that means all you need to do is get the me out of my life. The ego, the id, the desires, the pride, the selfishness, the lack of humility, and let God take over. And you'll find that all you'll want to do is just praise God for all the wonderful things that will be happening. Anyway, I'll wrap up there. As always, the details are below. Contact us. Very few people do. Very few people either put messages on the bottom of these messages or contact us via email or anything. Please, I want to see that very soon people are starting to do that regularly, and we're starting to get people connected with each other to grow. This is a very early stage at this stage. We haven't really developed much, but got to start somewhere. Okay, bless you. Govern well in Caras.